Agent Carter Season 2 has wrapped up for some weeks now, but I wanted to have a look back to the new Easter eggs from the comics. I felt like I could watch this season more than any other Marvel show without having any knowledge from the comics. At first glance, it also has less comic references than Season 1, but at second glance there are definitely some winks to the comics, although they seem more obscure than the first season. Let's take a look. The first big glaring comic reference is that of Whitney Frost, aka Madame Mask. In the comics, Whitney Frost was originally named Giulietta Nefaria, a last name fitting a villain if there ever was one. She was taken care of by the Frost family, who named her Whitney. Madame Mask is mainly an Iron Man villain. In the comics, her face gets disfigured by an accident and wears a mask to cover the scars, hence Madame Mask. The show doesn't go that far. Her face never gets horribly disfigured by zero matter, and she also doesn't wear a mask. She wears a veil sometimes, but it stops there. In the comics, she does have magical powers, but she mainly does hand-to-hand combat and guns. In the show, they make it more mystical with zero matter. That takes us to the next big Easter egg. Zero matter is what's called Dark Force in the comics. In the comics, Dark Force is a negative energy drawn from a dimension coined Dark Force Dimension. The show seems to define zero matter in pretty much the same way as Dark Force. When Jason Wilkes describes what he saw inside the zero matter, is pretty much how the comics describe the Dark Force Dimension. It's the show dipping its toe in the magical realm, which I didn't think this show would do. Jason Wilkes brings us to the next Easter egg, as there does exist a Jason Wilkes in the comics, although somewhat obscure. Even though a minor character in the comics, Agent Carter has depicted him pretty faithfully. Jason Wilkes was a scientist who was contracted by a communist agent who offers him $1 million for research into an invisibility ray. The man's greed makes him accept treason, and he succeeds, but he finds that after testing the ray upon himself, he has become intangible as well and has no way of turning on the switch of the antidote ray. So just like the comics, Jason Wilkes is a scientist who becomes invisible. Next comic reference is that of Joseph Manfredi, the right-hand man of Whitney Frost and her love interest. He too, just like Jason Wilkes, has a comic book counterpart. A little bit bigger than Wilkes' comic character, but the show doesn't depict him as faithfully as Jason. Joseph Manfredi is the son of Silvio Manfredi, better known as the crime lord Silvermane. In the comics, he is the villain Blackwing, who has power to control bats. In the show, he has been dumbed down to an Italian mob goon without the powers and the flashy costume. Calvin Chadwick is a final Easter egg. Although not a character in the comics, he is very likely a combination of two Marvel characters in the comics. Calvin Burlingame and Hesperus Chadwick are two members of the Secret Empire, a group dedicated to restore an aristocracy and rule over the United States of America first, and then the entire world. So it seems very likely that these two persons are the inspiration for Calvin Chadwick. Besides Madame Mask and Zero Matter, there weren't any big comic references this season. As it looks like Agent Carter is getting a season 3, I hope they really dive into some comic book storylines and characters. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next review.